The slap hit hard. Olivia's face turned. Her cheek burned, disbelief flashing in her eyes. Gasps echoed. People screamed. Phones lifted. Cameras clicked like a storm. A homeless man had just slapped a billionaire mother in the middle of a charity gala. Security surged forward, but before anyone could react, a gunshot tore through the night. The rear window of Olivia's car shattered behind her. Someone shouted, "Get down." The same man who struck her pulled her down, shielding her behind a wall as glass and screams rained over the crowd. When silence finally came, she looked up, trembling, and saw his eyes. Calm, focused, like he'd been waiting for that shot. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He just whispered, "You were never the target." The video hit the internet before dawn. A billionaire mom slapped by a homeless man, then saved by him seconds later. Millions watched. Millions judged. Headlines screamed, "Homeless man attacks Olivia Reed, then becomes her hero?" Scandal or setup? Every outlet tore into it, dissecting each frame. Commentators called him insane, dangerous. Olivia's PR team begged her to stay silent. But silence felt heavier than words. She couldn't erase his face, the steadiness in his eyes, the way his hand trembled after pulling her behind that wall. No hatred, no panic. Just purpose. Police detained him within hours. No ID, no address, no record. Just one line scribbled in a notebook they found in his coat pocket. "If I hadn't hit her, she'd be dead." That line went viral too. When detectives questioned Olivia, she kept repeating the same sentence. "He wasn't trying to hurt me." But no one listened. "Ma'am," the officer said, flipping through reports, "you're lucky to be alive. That man is unstable." Unstable. The word echoed in her mind. Yet when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the pull, how instinctively he'd moved before the gunshot. That night, she replayed the footage frame by frame. The slap, the gunfire, the way his eyes darted over her shoulder right before his hand rose. She froze the image, zoomed in. Behind her, in the blurred reflection of a car window, something glinted, metallic, like a gun. Her pulse quickened. She checked the news. Police found no weapon, no shooter, no motive. Case closed as a random disturbance. But Olivia couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m. She drove back to the spot where it happened. Broken glass still on the street. Blood on her sleeve dried into a faint scar. A shadow moved near the alley. She turned her head, and for a brief second saw him, the homeless man, watching quietly from the corner. She froze, unsure if it was fear or gratitude that made her stay. He didn't move closer, didn't ask for help. He just looked at her, the same steady look from before, and then walked away into the dark. As his figure disappeared into the city, Olivia whispered to herself, "Who are you?" Olivia couldn't shake the image, that single haunting look before he vanished into the dark. She didn't know his name, his story, or why he'd been there that night. But she knew he hadn't meant to hurt her. The next morning, her assistant dropped a plain brown envelope on her desk. "No sender," she said. It was left at the front gate. Inside was a folded photograph. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, smiling beside a worn-down food truck. And in the background, that same man, standing near the counter, half in shadow, eyes lowered, on the back. A single sentence in shaky handwriting. "She trusted you once." Olivia's chest tightened. The girl looked vaguely familiar, the kind of face you see once and never forget. She pulled up old charity files, orphanage donations, sponsorship programs. There, Sunrise Shelter for Families. She'd visited it 3 years ago, after the storm that destroyed half the city's east side. Her company had donated supplies, and she'd shaken hands with dozens of people. Among them, a man serving food to displaced children. Her hand trembled as she zoomed in on an old photo from that event. The same eyes, the same calm expression. Only cleaner, younger, before the streets had hardened him. He wasn't just a stranger. He'd been there all along, quietly helping, invisible among the noise of her wealth. That afternoon, Olivia visited the shelter again. The building was quieter now, walls cracked, donations thinner. A woman recognized her instantly. "You came here years ago," she said softly. "He used to volunteer here every week." "Who?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The man from the news," the woman whispered. "He had a daughter, Lily, sweetest child you'd ever meet." Olivia's breath caught. "Had?" The woman nodded sadly. "She got sick. He couldn't afford the hospital. He came here after losing everything: job, home, hope. Still tried to help others. Said someone rich had promised to fund Lily's treatment, but the donation never came." The room felt colder suddenly. Olivia's pulse raced. Her foundation had managed those funds. That year, one transfer never went through. Her name had been on the approval form. Tears blurred her eyes. He'd been there that night not for revenge, but because he thought she had broken a promise that cost him his child. And yet, he saved her life. Olivia sank onto the bench, her voice barely a whisper. "He lost everything because of me." She stared at the photo of Lily again. The innocent smile, the trust, and beneath it, the question that wouldn't leave her mind. If the slap was his way of saving her, what was he trying to protect her from now? The police station smelled of burnt coffee and tension. Olivia sat in silence, her trembling hands clasped together. Reporters outside were shouting questions, all variations of the same thing. "Why did the homeless man slap you?" But she couldn't answer, because she didn't know. Across the room, the man sat quietly. His clothes were torn, his hands scraped, but his eyes were sharp, like someone who'd seen too much and learned to stay quiet. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't explain himself. He just waited. Finally, Detective Marsh entered, holding a file. "Ms. Olivia, we've confirmed the bullet came from a rooftop, professional-grade rifle. Whoever fired it knew what they were doing." Olivia blinked. "You mean that shot was meant for me?" The detective nodded. "Looks that way. If he hadn't pulled you down, you'd be dead." Her gaze slowly turned toward the homeless man. For the first time, she saw him not as a stranger, but as someone who'd known what was coming. "Who are you?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. Instead, the detective slid a photograph across the table. "We ran his fingerprints," Marsh said. "And you might want to see this." Olivia looked down and froze. It was a photo from years ago. A uniformed security officer stood proudly beside her late husband at a charity event. Same eyes, same face. The man sitting across from her, now her throat tightened. He worked for my husband?" Marsh nodded slowly. "Bodyguard, decorated. After your husband's death, he vanished. Officially presumed dead." Olivia turned to him again. "Why didn't you tell me?" The man finally spoke, voice low, steady. "Because I failed him." Silence. Only the soft hum of the ceiling light. He continued, "Your husband trusted me to keep him safe. That night, the night he died, I wasn't there. I got the call too late. By the time I reached the scene, it was over. So I disappeared. Figured the city didn't need another failed protector." Tears filled her eyes, unbidden. "And tonight?" she whispered. He looked at her, not as a guard, not as a stranger, but as someone haunted by unfinished duty. "Tonight," he said, "I wasn't going to fail again." Olivia swallowed hard, trying to breathe. The story was no longer about a slap, or even the chaos that followed. It was about redemption. A man who'd lost everything, now standing in the shadows. still guarding a family that didn't even know he existed anymore. When the detective left the room, the world outside still believed the homeless man was crazy. But Olivia knew better. He wasn't her attacker. He was her shield dog, and for the first time, she realized the truth would break the internet. But maybe it was a story that needed to be told. The next morning, headlines screamed chaos. Billionaire mom assaulted by homeless man. Every news outlet had the same frame. The slap, frozen midair, Olivia's face turned in shock. None showed what happened after Dot, inside her penthouse. Olivia scrolled through the flood of hate and ridicule. Her PR team begged her to stay silent. "We'll let the story die out," they said. But her hands were shaking too much to type. Because she knew what everyone else didn't, that slap wasn't an attack. It was a warning. A desperate act that saved her life. Her phone buzzed. Detective Marsh again. "Ms. Olivia, we traced the rifle. It's connected to a private contractor. Same group under investigation for your husband's death." Her heart stopped. "You mean—" "Yes. Whoever killed your husband was coming for you next." The room spun for a moment. Everything she thought she knew, her safety, her wealth, her life, felt like glass cracking beneath her feet. And somewhere out there, a man the world called a lunatic had stopped it from shattering completely. She stood abruptly. "Where is he?" The detective hesitated. "Still in holding. But I'd advise against." "I'm going," she interrupted. Minutes later, she stood outside the small interview room again. The man was sitting exactly as before, calm, silent, his posture neither proud nor broken. Just steady. Olivia stepped in, closing the door behind her. "They told me," she said quietly. "About the rifle. About my husband." He didn't look up. "Then you know why I stayed close." Her eyes softened. "You've been watching me all this time?" He finally met her gaze. "Not to spy. To protect. When you have nothing left to live for, you find one thing that still matters, and you hold on to it." Her throat tightened. "You think protecting me will fix what happened?" "No," he replied simply. "But it might stop it from happening again." There was no drama in his tone, no plea for understanding, just truth. The kind of truth that stripped away excuses. Olivia stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You let the world think you were gone, just so you could stand in the shadows and guard a family that forgot you existed." He looked down, his jaw tense. Families move on. Ghosts don't. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she did something unexpected. She sat across from him, folding her hands on the table. "I don't want you to be a ghost anymore," she said. "I want people to know what you did." He shook his head. "That's not my story to tell." But Olivia leaned in, determination hardening her voice. "Then it's mine." Outside, the noise of the city rumbled like distant thunder. The world thought it knew what happened that night. A slap, a scandal, another tabloid headline. But in that small room, the truth finally took shape. A billionaire, a broken protector, and a moment that changed everything. A week later, the world saw a different headline. Homeless man wasn't the villain. He saved a life. It started with a shaky press video Olivia uploaded herself. No PR filters, no fancy lighting. Just her, standing outside a shelter, eyes red but voice steady. "The man you all saw slap me," she said, "did it to save me. Seconds later, a bullet shattered the car behind me. He didn't attack me. He protected me. And the truth is, he's not who you think he is." That video spread faster than any scandal she'd ever faced. Overnight, the hate turned to shock. Then, to silence. Then, slowly, to admiration. Reporters camped outside the police station, shouting questions. Who is he? Was he really homeless? Why did he disappear? But the man stayed quiet. He refused every interview, every offer, every attempt to drag him into the spotlight. He slept in his usual corner of the shelter that night, head down, eyes closed, peace in his chest for the first time in years. Not until footsteps stopped beside him. It was Olivia. No bodyguards, no cameras. Just her holding a warm paper bag and a folded coat. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured without opening his eyes. She smiled faintly. "Neither should you." He looked up. She placed the bag beside him, hot soup and bread. "They want to give you a medal," she said. He shook his head. "I don't want a medal. I just wanted her safe." Her eyes glistened. "You mean my daughter?" He nodded once. For a moment, neither spoke. The city hummed around them. Cars, voices, the distant wail of sirens. All the noise of a world that had finally started to see what it had ignored. Olivia's voice broke the silence. "You could come home. You saved us once. Maybe it's time to save yourself too." He chuckled softly, the sound weary but warm. "Home isn't a place, ma'am. It's the peace you feel when you've done what's right." She swallowed hard, fighting the lump in her throat. "Then at least let me help you find it." He studied her for a long moment, the same woman he once watched from afar. Now standing before him not as someone to protect, but as someone offering protection. Finally, he nodded. The next morning, Olivia's car rolled quietly down the street. Beside her sat the man the world once called a monster. Now, just a silent guardian staring out the window, seeing the sun rise for the first time in years without fear. At a red light, Olivia looked over and said softly, "You know, no one believed why you slapped me that day." He smiled faintly, eyes still on the horizon. "They don't have to." The light turned green. The car moved forward. 2 lives finally leaving the shadows behind. And for the first time, the man who once had nothing didn't feel homeless anymore.